The bridge of the HFY command vessel * Peaceful Dawn * shuddered violently as another crimson plasma barrage struck its failing energy shields. Captain Velthara's 4 slender arms danced frantically across the holographic control panels, her pale blue skin glistening with stress hormones. The elegant crystalline structures that decorated her elongated skull dimmed with fear as warning klaxons wailed throughout the ship. For 3 weeks now, the Vrakton horde had been systematically destroying everything in their path. The peaceful HFY had never faced such brutality. Their ships were designed for exploration and trade, not warfare. Beautiful curved hulls that caught starlight like jewels were no match for the angular death machines of their attackers. Through the main viewport, Velthara watched in horror as another of her escort vessels exploded in a brilliant flash of white-hot plasma. The Gentle Current had been home to 200 souls just moments before. Now it was nothing but expanding debris and cooling metal. "Shield generators are failing," shouted her tactical officer, his trunk-like proboscis quivering with terror. "We've lost 60% power across all systems." The Vrakton ships looked like mechanical nightmares. Their hulls were covered in jagged spikes and weapon ports that glowed with menacing red energy. Each vessel was 3 times the size of the largest HFY ship, and their black armor seemed to absorb light itself. They moved through space like hungry predators stalking wounded prey. "How many of them are left?" Velthara demanded, her voice cracking with exhaustion. 17 ships, Captain. They are forming up for another attack run." Velthara closed her large violet eyes for a moment. In the old days, before the horde came, she would meditate in her garden aboard the ship. She would tend to the flowering vines that grew along the corridors, breathing in their sweet scent while watching distant stars through the observation domes. Those days felt like a lifetime ago. The Vrakton had appeared without warning 6 months ago. No demands, no negotiations, no explanations. They simply began destroying everything they encountered. Entire worlds had gone silent. Billions of peaceful beings had vanished into the void. "Communications officer," she called out in desperation. "Send the emergency distress signal to the Morgian Republic. Tell them we need immediate military assistance." The young communications specialist, barely out of the academy, worked with shaking appendages at his console. Sweat beaded on his smooth forehead as he struggled with the damaged systems. "Captain, the communications array took a direct hit during the last assault. The targeting system is completely offline." Sparks erupted from a nearby control panel as another Vrakton plasma bolt found its mark. The ship's lights flickered ominously. Through the deck plating, Velthara could feel the deep thrumming of the engines as they struggled to maintain power. "I'm trying to narrow the transmission beam to reach Mordian space," the officer continued, "but the focusing crystals are cracked. The signal is bleeding across multiple frequency bands." Another bone-jarring impact shook the vessel. This time, the artificial gravity fluctuated, causing everyone on the bridge to float momentarily before crashing back down. Emergency force fields activated across hull breaches, the only thing standing between the crew and the vacuum of space. "Captain." The sensor operator's voice was filled with panic. "The lead Vrakton vessel is charging its primary weapon. It's aimed directly at us." Through the viewports, they could see the massive enemy dreadnought. Its bow was splitting open like the jaws of some mechanical beast, revealing a weapon that pulsed with deadly energy. The charging sound was so powerful it resonated through the hull of their own ship. "Just send the signal." Velthara screamed as the Vrakton ships closed in for what was clearly going to be their final attack. "Send it anyway. Someone out there has to hear us." The communications officer slammed his fist down on the transmission control. The damage array sparked and flared, but the message broadcast out into the void. Instead of the precise beam intended for their Mordian allies, the malfunction created a massive omnidirectional burst that spread across hundreds of light years. The desperate plea for help raced through hyperspace, carrying with it the coordinates of the dying HFY worlds and the terrifying details of the Vrakton assault. It passed by empty systems, dead worlds, and bustling trade routes. Most species that received it were too far away or too weak to help. But in one small corner of the galaxy, on a monitoring station orbiting the 3rd planet of an unremarkable yellow star, the signal was detected. Lieutenant Rebecca Torres rubbed her tired eyes and reached for another cup of coffee. The night shift at the Deep Space Communications Center in Colorado was usually quiet. Most nights, She monitored routine traffic from mining operations in the asteroid belt or checked in with the outer colonies. Nothing exciting ever happened on her watch. Until tonight, her console began flashing urgent red warnings. The signal was unlike anything in their databases. It wasn't from any human colony or known alien contact. The mathematical patterns were completely foreign, but there was something about the transmission that made her blood run cold. Major David Stone looked up from his paperwork as alarms began sounding throughout the facility. "Torres, what's going on over there?" "Sir, you need to see this." Her voice was barely a whisper. "We're receiving what appears to be an alien distress call. And, sir, I think they're dying." Within 6 hours of the alien distress signal reaching Earth, every major world leader was connected through emergency quantum communication networks. The message had been partially decoded by the world's most advanced artificial intelligence systems, but what they found made seasoned diplomats go pale with shock. At the United Nations Emergency Council in New York, President Maria Rodriguez of the Americas Federation stared at the holographic displays showing star charts and decoded alien text. The translation was rough, but the meaning was crystal clear. An entire species was being hunted to extinction by something called the Vrakton Horde. "How accurate is this translation?" asked Prime Minister James Fletcher of the European Alliance, his usually calm demeanor cracked with concern. Dr. Amanda Chen, Earth's leading xenolinguist, adjusted her glasses nervously. "The mathematical patterns are consistent across multiple transmission bursts. We've confirmed the message using 3 different AI translation protocols. These beings are definitely asking for help, and they're running out of time." The decoded message painted a terrifying picture. Entire worlds going dark. Billions of innocent lives being snuffed out by an aggressive empire that seemed to kill for the sake of killing. The HFY had provided coordinates, ship classifications, and tactical information about their attackers in a desperate final transmission. Halfway around the world, in the Pentagon's most secure briefing room, the Joint Chiefs of Staff gathered around a massive holographic display. Admiral William Drake stood at attention, his steel-gray hair catching the light from projected star maps. His weathered face, marked by decades of military service, was grim as he addressed the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, in 30 years of service, I've never seen anything like this intelligence package," Drake began, his voice carrying the weight of command. "These HFY have sent us detailed tactical analyses, fleet compositions, and battle damage assessments. They are not just asking for help. They are providing us with everything we need to fight their war." General Patricia Stone, commander of Earth's orbital defense platforms, leaned forward in her chair. "Admiral, with all due respect, we don't know anything about these alien species. For all we know, these HFY could be the aggressors trying to trick us into fighting their battles." The room buzzed with murmured conversations. It was a valid concern. Humanity had only recently developed faster than light travel. They were still discovering new solar systems and had never encountered intelligent alien life until this moment. "I've considered that possibility," Drake acknowledged, pulling up new data on the holodisplay. "But our deep space monitoring stations had detected massive energy signatures in the HFY system. Whatever's happening out there, it involves weapons of incredible destructive power. The radiation patterns match what we'd expect from planetary bombardment." Captain Frank Miller, Earth's top military intelligence analyst, stood up and activated his own presentation. "So, I've been analyzing the technical data they provided about these Vrakton ships. These aren't exploration vessels or cargo haulers. Every design element screams military aggression. Armor plating, weapon ports, shield generators. These are ships built for one purpose: destroying other ships." The holographic display showed reconstructed images of Vrakton vessels based on the alien intelligence. They were nightmarish things, covered in spikes and weapon systems, with hulls that seemed designed to intimidate as much as to fight. President Thomas Anderson's voice crackled through the secure communication system from a White House Situation Room. "Admiral Drake, what exactly are you proposing?" Drake took a deep breath. This was the moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. "Mr. President, I'm proposing we show the universe what human beings stand for. These HFY are facing complete extinction. If we don't act, an entire civilization will be wiped from existence." "And if it's a trap?" asked General Stone. "Then we'll deal with that when it happens," Drake replied firmly. But I spent my entire career learning to read battle situations, and everything in this intelligence package tells me these people are genuinely desperate. They are sending us their most classified military secrets because they have nothing left to lose. The Admiral pulled up new files showing Earth's military capabilities. I'm requesting authorization to deploy the Fifth Fleet, 437 warships, including 12 heavy dreadnoughts, 48 cruisers, and a full complement of fighter squadrons. The room fell completely silent. The Fifth Fleet was humanity's most powerful military formation, designed to protect Earth from any conceivable threat. It had taken decades to build and represented the pinnacle of human engineering and firepower. Admiral, President Anderson's voice was careful and measured. You're talking about committing our entire strategic reserve to help aliens we've never met, in a war we don't understand, against an enemy we know nothing about. Yes, sir, I am. The political risks alone could destabilize our government, added General Stone. If this goes wrong, if we lose the fleet, Earth will be defenseless. Drake nodded slowly. That's true. But if we do nothing, we'll have to live with the knowledge that we could have prevented genocide and chose not to. Is that the legacy we want for humanity? That when innocent people called for help, we were too afraid to answer? 4 long moments. The only sound in the briefing room was a hum of the holographic projectors. Finally, President Anderson's voice returned. Admiral Drake, you have authorization to deploy the Fifth Fleet. Show the galaxy what humanity is made of. 72 hours later, Admiral Drake stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant Asterisk, watching as the largest human armada in history prepared for the longest hyperspace jump they had ever attempted. Around him, 400 warships hummed with activity as crews made final preparation for battle. This was humanity's first contact with alien life, and they were going to war. The human fleet materialized at the edge of Kethvar space in a brilliant cascade of blue-white energy that lit up the darkness like a newborn star. 437 warships dropped out of hyperspace simultaneously, their arrival creating massive gravitational waves that registered on every sensor array within 10 light minutes. On the bridge of the UES Defiant Asterisk, Admiral William Drake watched the tactical displays come alive with contact markers. His ship's advanced sensors were already cataloging every vessel in the system, building a complete picture of the battlefield they had just entered. "Holy hell!" whispered Lieutenant Commander Rebecca Hayes from the sensor station. "Sir, I'm reading massive debris fields throughout the system. There are at least 40 destroyed vessels floating out there." Drake's jaw tightened as he studied the readings. The debris patterns told a story of systematic slaughter. Ships had been hunted down and destroyed with methodical precision. This wasn't warfare, it was extermination. "Admiral," called out Commander Tony Walsh from communications, "we're receiving identification pings from 17 vessels at the system center. They match the ship classification from the Kethvar distress signal. And the hostile contacts. 43 vessels in attack formation around the survivors. Their energy signatures are off the charts. So, these things are massive." Throughout the system, every sensor array and communications relay suddenly locked onto the new arrivals. The human ships were unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Where Kethvar vessels were elegant curves and flowing lines, and Vrakton ships were jagged brutality, human warships were something else entirely. They looked like mechanical predators. Angular hulls covered in armor plating, bristling with weapon ports and sensor arrays. Each ship radiated an aura of controlled violence, as if they had been designed by engineers who understood that sometimes the universe required a firm response to aggression. On the bridge of the Vrakton flagship Bloodrender Asterisk, War Commander Graktul rose from his command throne with predatory interest. His massive frame, covered in natural bone armor and battle scars, towered over his bridge crew. His 4 eyes studied the newcomers on the main display while his mandibles clicked with amusement. "What species builds ships like that?" he growled, his voice a deep rumble that vibrated through the deck plating. "Those vessels are clearly designed for warfare. Look at the weapon configurations, the armor distribution. These are not traders or explorers." His tactical officer, a smaller Vrakton with cybernetic implants covering half his skull, worked frantically at his station. "War Commander, our sensors are having difficulty penetrating their hull composition. The armor appears to be some form of advanced alloy we've never encountered." Graktul's mandibles spread in what passed for a grin among his species. Interesting. It has been too long since we faced a worthy opponent. These herbivores, he gestured dismissively toward the surviving Kevlar ships, have provided no challenge at all. Meanwhile, aboard the Kevlar vessel Last Hope Captain Velthara stared at her sensor displays in complete bewilderment. Her forearms trembled as she tried to process what she was seeing. "Who are they?" she whispered to her bridge crew. "Those ship designs, they are not in any of our databases. And those energy readings." Her science officer, a young Kefar named Delmaron, looked up from his console with wide violet eyes. "Captain, their power outputs are incredible. Each of their larger vessels is generating more energy than our entire remaining fleet combined. But where did they come from? We didn't detect any hyperspace signatures until they were already here." Suddenly, every communication system in the star system activated simultaneously. A strong, confident voice cut through the chaos of battle chatter and emergency transmissions. The translation protocols worked overtime to convert the alien language into something both species could understand. "This is Admiral William Drake of the United Earth Forces. Unknown hostile vessels, you will immediately cease all aggressive actions and withdraw from this system. This is your only warning." The bridge of the Blood Render erupted in harsh laughter. Graktol's officers chittered and clicked their amusement at the audacity of these newcomers. "Earth!" Graktol's voice boomed across all frequencies, his translator giving his word a menacing tone. "Never heard of it. Little creatures, you have stumbled into a war zone that does not concern you. These herbivores are our prey. Flee now, while you still can, or you will share their fate." There was a moment of silence that seemed to stretch across the entire star system. Then Admiral Drake's voice returned, calm and measured. "I'll take that as a refusal to comply." On the bridge of the Defiant Drake turned to his weapons officer. "Commander Patricia Foster, target their flagship. Let's show them what a human railgun can do." "Aye, sir. Target locked. Railgun charge and ready. Fire." The UES Defiance main weapon fired with a sound like thunder in vacuum. The tungsten projectile, accelerated by magnetic field to 12% of light speed, crossed the distance between fleets in less than 3 seconds. The Vrakton shields, designed to deflect energy weapons and plasma charges, offered no resistance to the solid projectile. The rod of metal, moving at nearly 40,000 kilometers per second, punched through the Blood Render's shields as if they weren't there. It tore through the shipstick armor plating like tissue paper, creating a perfectly round hole 20 meters wide that went completely through the massive dreadnought. Atmosphere vented explosively from both sides of the wound. The Blood Render nearly 2 kilometers long and weighing millions of tons, actually spun sideways from the impact, its gyroscopic stabilizers overwhelmed by the kinetic transfer. On his bridge, Graktol was thrown against a bulkhead as his flagship shuddered under the impact. Emergency klaxons wailed as damage reports flooded in. "What was that?" he roared, his confidence suddenly shaken. "Direct hit amidships." His tactical officer reported with panic in his voice. "Hull breach on 17 decks. We've lost main power to sections 4 through 9. Admiral Drake's voice cut through the chaos once more, now broadcasting on all frequencies with deadly calm. "All ships, weapons free. Let's teach these predators what happens when they threaten the innocent." The human fleet's weapon systems came online with a coordinated precision that chilled both alien species to their cores. 400 warships bristling with railguns, missile launchers, and energy weapons, all targeting the Vrakton fleet with mechanical efficiency. The real battle was about to begin. The battle that erupted across Kefar space would be remembered as one of the most decisive military engagements in galactic history. What the Vrakton horde expected to be a simple slaughter of unknown newcomers instead became a masterclass in human warfare that left seasoned military observers speechless. Within minutes of Admiral Drake's order, the human fleet transformed from a collection of individual ships into a single, coordinated organism of destruction. The Vrakton had never seen anything like it. Captain Jennifer Hayes commanded the destroyer squadron Wolfpack 12 sleek warships that suddenly broke formation and accelerated toward the enemy flank at impossible angles. The Vrakton tactical computers couldn't predict their movement patterns because human ships were doing things that violated every known principle of space combat. All Wolfpack vessels, execute Pattern 7. Hayes commanded as a ship stub below the plane of battle, using the gravitational pull of a nearby gas giant to slingshot around and appear behind the enemy formation. War Commander Graktul watched in growing alarm as the human destroyers seemed to teleport from one position to another. "How are they moving like that?" he demanded. "Our sensors show impossible acceleration rates." His tactical officer's mandibles clicked nervously. "War Commander, their ships appear to have some form of advanced inertial dampening system. They are pulling maneuvers that should liquefy their crews, but somehow they are maintaining combat effectiveness." The truth was even more impressive. Human ships weren't just built for war. They were built by a species that had spent centuries fighting each other in increasingly creative ways. Every design element came from hard-learned lessons about what worked in actual combat versus what looked good on paper. Commander Tony Walsh led a wing of heavy cruisers in a coordinated assault that demonstrated human tactical thinking at its finest. While the Vrakton focused their attention on the flashy destroyer maneuvers, Walsh's ships used a distraction to position themselves for devastating broadside attacks. "Target their power cores," Walsh ordered. "I want clean kills, not cripples." The human railguns fired in perfect sequence, each shot timed to hit a different Vrakton vessel simultaneously. The tungsten projectiles, moving at relativistic speeds, punched through armor and shields like they were made of paper. In 30 seconds, 6 Vrakton cruisers went dark, their power systems completely destroyed. But it was the fighter squadrons that truly shocked both alien species. Commander Rebecca Stone led 300 human fighters in an attack pattern that seemed to defy physics itself. Raptor Squadron, initiate swarm protocol. Stone commanded as the fighters broke into dozens of smaller groups, each moving independently but somehow coordinating perfectly. The Vrakton point defense systems, designed to track and destroy incoming missiles, couldn't cope with targets that moved like living creatures. Human fighters dodged and weaved through defensive fire, their pilots using three-dimensional thinking that made their attack runs look like an elaborate dance. "How are they communicating?" demanded Graktul as he watched human fighters coordinate attacks without any detectable radio transmissions. "Our electronic warfare systems are detecting no communications between their vessels." What the Vrakton didn't understand was that human ships use quantum entanglement communicators, making their coordination instantaneous and impossible to jam. When the enemy tried electronic warfare attacks, targeting human systems with viruses and data corruption, they found themselves facing adaptive AI systems that learned and countered their attacks in real time. "So, they are jamming our communications," reported a Vrakton technician. "Then use backup frequencies," Graktul snarled. "They are jamming those too, and our targeting computers are being fed false data." When the Vrakton attempted their traditional ramming attacks, charging human ships with their heavily armored dreadnoughts, they discovered that human point defense systems were unlike anything they had ever encountered. Instead of trying to destroy incoming ships, human defensive grids created overlapping fields of destruction that simply disintegrated anything that came too close. Lieutenant Patricia Mills monitored the defensive systems aboard the UES Guardian Star. Multiple ramming attempts detected. Activating Aegis Protocol. The Guardian's hull bristled with thousands of small railgun turrets that fired continuously, creating a sphere of flying metal around the ship. Any vessel trying to approach was instantly shredded by the defensive storm. As the battle progressed, the Vrakton began to realize they were facing something completely outside their experience. Human ships fought like a pack of predators, each one supporting the others, adapting to new threats instantly, and showing a level of tactical flexibility that bordered on the supernatural. "War Commander," his communications officer reported with panic in his voice, "we've lost contact with Battle Group 7, 9, and 12. The Bone Crusher and Death's Edge are reporting critical damage." Graktul stared at his tactical display in disbelief. In less than 4 hours, the mighty Vrakton horde had lost nearly half their fleet to an enemy they had never heard of. "All ships, fall back to Rally Point Delta," he finally ordered, his pride shattered. "We need to regroup and analyze their tactics." But the humans weren't finished. As the Vrakton fleet began its retreat, human ships moved to intercept, not to destroy, but to ensure the enemy couldn't return. They created a perfect blockade, allowing the defeated ships to leave but making it clear that any attempt to return would be met with overwhelming force. Within 8 hours, the space around HFY worlds was empty of enemy vessels. The dreaded Vrakton horde, terror of the galaxy, had been completely routed by an unknown species that had appeared from nowhere. Captain Velthara watched from a damaged bridge as human ships began descending toward the captured worlds below. Her heart sank as she prepared for the worst. Surely these new predators would claim their prize. The strong always dominated the weak. It was a way of the universe. Instead, her communication system activated with a message that would change her understanding of the galaxy forever. HFY vessels. This is Commander Beth Foster aboard the UEF humanitarian vessel * Mercy Star. We're here to evacuate your civilians and provide medical assistance. Please transmit coordinates of refugee camps, medical facilities, and any survivors in need of immediate aid. Velthara stared at her screens in complete shock. These fearsome warriors, who had just demonstrated military superiority beyond anything she had ever imagined, were offering to help rescue civilians. For the first time in months, she began to believe that her people might actually survive. 3 weeks after the battle that shattered the Vrakton horde, the HFY system buzzed with unprecedented activity. Human medical ships work alongside HFY vessels, evacuating refugees from devastated worlds and providing aid to millions of displaced civilians. The sight would have been unimaginable just a month earlier. Captain Velthara stood in the observation deck of the UES * Defiant *, her 4 arms clasped behind her as she watched the final preparations for the human fleet's departure. The transparent aluminum viewport offered a perfect view of the organized chaos below. Massive human cargo vessels were transferring medical supplies, food replicators, and defensive technologies to HFY ships. Admiral William Drake joined her at the viewport, his weathered hands clasped behind his back in a similar posture. For several minutes, they stood in comfortable silence, watching human and HFY crews working together to repair damaged vessels. "I still don't understand," Velthara finally said, her voice soft as a translation device converted her melodic language into human speech. "You traveled across half the galaxy, fought a war against an enemy you'd never met, lost ships and crew members, and now you're giving us advanced technology and asking for nothing in return. Why?" Drake was quiet for a long moment, his gray eyes reflecting the starlight streaming through the viewport. In the distance, a human destroyer was sharing its shield-generator technology with a damaged HFY cruiser, the 2 crews working side by side despite having met only weeks ago. "Because it was the right thing to do," Drake said simply. Velthara's large violet eyes studied the human admiral's profile. "But your species, you're clearly evolved predators. Your ships are designed for warfare. Your tactics show generations of combat experience. Your weapons technology is centuries ahead of ours. You could have conquered this entire sector if you wanted to." Drake turned to face her, and she was surprised to see kindness in his eyes rather than the cold calculation she expected from a military predator. "We are what we choose to be," he said gently. "Yes, humans can be predators. We've fought each other for thousands of years. We know more about warfare than most species will ever learn. But we also learned something else during all those conflicts." "What?" "We learned that strength without compassion is just brutality. We learned that the strong have a responsibility to protect the weak, not exploit them." Throughout the system, the evidence of human compassion was everywhere. Hospital ships treated wounded HFY with the same care that would show their own people. Engineering teams worked around the clock to restore damaged infrastructure on liberated worlds. Human psychologists trained HFY counselors to help survivors deal with the trauma of the Vrakton occupation. On the bridge of the * Defiant Commander Rebecca Hayes was coordinating the final supply transfers. "Admiral, the last of the medical equipment has been transferred to the HFY hospital ship * Healing Light Star. Engineering teams have completed installation of our defensive shield generators on their 3 largest vessels. And the technological transfers." "Complete, sir. We provided them with everything they need to defend themselves if the Vrakton return. Communications arrays, sensor networks, and enough manufacturing data to build their own defensive systems." Drake nodded with satisfaction. Humanity's policy was clear: help others become strong enough to protect themselves rather than creating dependency. Captain Velthara, A young HFY officer who had served as liaison between the fleets approached them with a data pad in her trunk-like appendage. "Admiral Drake, our Science Council has finished analyzing the defensive technologies you've shared with us. They estimate it will take us 20 years to fully understand and implement these systems." "That's the idea," Drake replied with a slight smile. "We're not giving you weapons of conquest. We're giving you the tools to defend your homes and protect your families." As the final hour approached, representatives from dozens of species began arriving in the system. Word of the Terran intervention had spread across the galaxy faster than anyone thought possible. Trade vessels, diplomatic ships, and even military scouts came to witness the aftermath of humanity's first contact with galactic civilization. Among them was Ambassador Jethma of the Galactic Council, a spindly insectoid being whose species had been observing galactic politics for over 1,000 years. "Admiral Drake," Jethma said through his translation device, his compound eyes studying the human leader with fascination, "my government wishes to understand your species' intentions. You possess military technology that could threaten established galactic powers, yet you use it only to protect others. This is unprecedented." Drake looked out at the assembled ships, representing dozens of different civilizations, all drawn by curiosity about humanity's actions. "Ambassador, our intentions are simple. We believe that intelligent life is precious, regardless of what planet it evolved on. We believe that the strong should protect the weak. And we believe that peace is only possible when aggressors know there will be consequences for their actions." As the human fleet prepared for departure, Drake sent one final message that would be remembered across the galaxy for centuries. His words were broadcast on all frequencies, reaching not just the assembled ships but monitoring stations throughout known space. "This is Admiral William Drake of the United Earth Forces. 3 weeks ago, we received a cry for help from a dying civilization. Today, that civilization is free. We want every species in this galaxy to understand something. Earth is watching. We may be new to this galactic community, but we will not stand by while innocents suffer. If any species threatens the defenseless, if any empire seeks to destroy rather than build, if any force of evil believes it can act without consequence, they are wrong. We will know, and we will answer." The human ships activated their hyperspace drives simultaneously, creating a cascade of light that could be seen across the system. As they vanished into the void, they left behind a galaxy forever changed. In council chambers on 100 worlds, the same conversations were taking place. What kind of predators hunt other predators specifically to protect prey species? What did it mean that the most militarily advanced species anyone had encountered used their power only for defense? The answer would reshape galactic civilization. For the first time in recorded history, aggressors had to consider whether their victims might have powerful friends. The balance of power had shifted, and it had shifted toward justice. In the depths of space, monitoring stations picked up increased diplomatic chatter, requests for contact with this Earth, and most telling of all, the sound of aggressive empires reconsidering their expansion plans. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy not as conquerors, but as guardians, and the universe would never be the same. Asterisk the E and D asterisk.